Hi, my name is Kristen and this is Kristen Craves Books. I cannot believe we only have 2 months worth of new releases to talk about in 2023. Obviously, publishing starts to slow at this time, but I still have 20 books to talk about, around 20 books in November, and some of my most anticipated books of the year, some that have a lot of buzz, some that are more hidden gems, I think, and I just can't wait to talk about them with you all. So we're going to start with November 7th, and the first book is actually a new one from Darcy Coates, who is an author that I discovered this year and really like and want to read more from. But this is her YA debut, and it's called Where He Can't Find You, and I just have to read you like the little chant because this sounds like an episode of Criminal Minds. You know those really scary episodes of Criminal Minds? That is what this is giving. And it says, "Don't walk alone or the Stitcher will find you. Don't stay out late or the Stitcher will take you. Don't close your eyes or the Stitcher will remake you." So this follows a young girl named Abby who lives in this town where people just seem to disappear, and when they are found, or their bodies are found, they have been dismembered and then stitched back together, hence why the killer's name is Stitcher. And everyone in this town is just kind of used to this. They have curfews and things like that. But one day Abby's sister goes missing, and obviously she is determined to find her, so her and her friends get together to do that. And I think they learn some things about the Stitcher, and I'm wondering if this leans more paranormal or not, because from what I know, Darcy Coates tends to have a paranormal edge to her stories, but this is her first YA. It's not giving paranormal really from the synopsis, but you never know, and yeah, it just sounds super creepy, something to give you nightmares. And I'm excited to have a YA from her because I do love YA horror and YA thrillers, so this one sounds uber creepy. I kind of wish it came out in October because it would have been perfect. We also have a new Katie Roberts coming out, and I have never read anything by Katie Roberts, though I know a lot of people adore her stuff, but this one sounds like something I might pick up. It's called Hunt on Dark Water. And this has vampires. Our main character is a witch. She's saved by a pirate. There are different realms and stuff, a lot going on here. But I think our main character is actually like a pickpocketer, and she ends up getting in trouble. Her ex-boyfriend is a vampire, and she somehow ends up in the sea and is saved by this pirate. And he seems to live in this high sea that is in between these two worlds and acts as like a protector or something. Sounds out there, but I'm into it. And this next one, I don't even think I have to talk about too much. Obviously, Iron Flame comes out on November 7th, and if you were a fan of Fourth Wing, I think you already knew that. And I liked Fourth Wing, but I'm a little bit nervous because I think a lot of what I liked about the Fourth Wing was the school setting. And as is the case with a lot of these school setting fantasies, the second book, I think, based on how it ended, is going to move away from that. So I'm nervous if I will enjoy it as much, but I don't think I need to sit here and explain Fourth Wing. You'd probably be bored. If you liked Fourth Wing, Iron Flame is coming out November 7th, and I'm curious to see if it holds up to the unbelievable hype that I know that it has. That one I already have read and also has a lot of hype. This is Bookshops Bonedust by Travis Baldree, and I love this. This is a prequel to Legends and Lattes, and I know that prequels aren't for everybody, but I am somebody who appreciates a prequel. I like to know the story before the story, and this one also follows Viv, who was our main character in Legends and Lattes, but she's the only character that's in both. And this takes place while she's still battling, and she ends up injured, and she has to take a break in this charming seaside town, so that is really sweet. And she ends up meeting some different side characters that you might see on the cover who are adorable and I absolutely loved. And she finds a love of reading, which I thought was great. And it's just, this book really sets you up to see why she makes choices that she makes in Legends and Lattes, and why maybe she wanted that quiet life at the end of the day, and I loved seeing all that. I know the thing with prequels is a lot of the times the stakes don't feel as high because you know where the character is going to end up, but that didn't bother me at all. I was just there for the ride. I love Viv as a character. I loved the seaside setting. I'm a sucker for a bookshop, a character discovering a love of reading I'm going to love. And Travis Baldree just has this way of writing such cozy characters and great relationships between them, so that was a win for me, and I hope it will be for all of you as well. I don't read a lot of mysteries these days, but this one actually really does intrigue me. It's called Enchanted Hill by Emily Bain Murphy, and this is set in old Hollywood, so I think 1930s. People are saying it's Great Gatsby meets Downton Abbey for fans of Agatha Christie, which I think is a vibe. I think if you're into those things, you know exactly how that would feel. And it is a murder mystery that takes place in this house, and I think it also is an enemies to lovers romance, so I'm into that idea. And our main character in this is an aspiring PI, and she's working undercover as a maid in this house when this man, Jack, walks in, who she knows from her past, and she blames him for a lot of stuff that happens in her past, and they have to end up working together. And it says here that it is an unforgettable, sweepingly romantic novel set in a world you won't want to leave. So I think there's some potential there that could be a good transitional book. I do like a good mystery, and I like old Hollywood settings, so there's potential for that to be really good. This next one might just win for best cover of a book coming out in November, and this is Gorgeous Gruesome Faces by Linda Chang. And this is a YA horror. It centers around K-pop. And I'm just going to read you this. It says, Yellow Jackets meet She's a Haunting in this debut speculative thriller that follows a disgraced teen idol who comes face to face with the demons of her past in a glittering, cutthroat K-pop competition. So it has that competition angle. People have actually said that this is like Squid Games, which is really interesting. And it follows these two girls who used to be in a band together. They were a trio. They haven't spoken since the awful night where the third band member ended up dead, and they are meeting again at this competition, and our main character thinks that they're going to be able to talk things through, but that's not how this goes at all, and I think things become deadly. So that sounds really intriguing. Again, love this cover. And as I've already said in this video, and I say it all the time, I love a good YA horror slash thriller. So yeah, this looks right up my alley. So that's it for November 7th. Moving on to November 13th, and we just have one book. This is a self-published book, and one of my favorite subreddits is r/cozy fantasy. I love that community. I love finding underrated self-published cozy fantasies to add to my TBR. I have so many, but this one is one coming out in November, and as soon as I saw the cover, I knew I had to add it to my list. And it's called The Fellowship of Bakers and Magic, and this is by Jay Penner. And the opening line on here says, a human, a dwarf, and an elf walk into a bake-off. So really, that's all I needed to hear. So it's following a human woman who is entered into this baking competition, and all the other competitors are elves and dwarves, and she's kind of looked down upon, and she can't use magic to bake, obviously, so they don't think that her food is going to be as good. But I think it's going to be charming. I think there's a romance. It says, while competing, she'll set off on a journey of mouth-watering pastries, self-discovery, heartwarming friendships, and romance while questioning whether winning the baking battle is the true prize. So that just looks cute to me. Moving on to November 14th, we have Calamity. This is by Constance Fay. And if you didn't know, Tor has started a romance imprint called Bramble, and they have picked up a lot of self-published indie romances. I think they are the ones that picked up like Serpent in the Wings of Night, and they've done some J.L. Armentrout books and things like that, but this is their debut. This book has not been published anywhere else before, so that is really interesting. And if you've been around, you know that fantasy romance is having a moment, but I'm ready for some sci-fi romance. I've read a couple, but I'm ready for more, and that's what this looks like. And I just love a misfit crew on a spaceship. I think that comes from my love of Becky Chambers and the Wayfarer series. But I hear a misfit crew and you put them on a spaceship, I'm gonna love this. It says that she's got a ramshackle spaceship, a misfit crew, and big problems with its sexy newest member. Fun, that sounds so fun to me. And then we have another sci-fi, one that I'm sure you've heard about. It's System Collapse by Martha Wells. This is the 7th book in the Murder Diary series. I finally caught up on that series this year, and I just love Murderbot. The more Murderbot, the better. I know we're getting a few more of these, and I am happy for it. I read Network Effect earlier this year, and I was worried that I wouldn't love a full-length novel of Murderbot, but I loved it, so I'm so thrilled that this one is also a full-length novel. I've heard that it takes place right after the events of Network Effect, so it might be a good idea even for myself to reread that one, or at least find a spoiler video or something. I'm sure they exist because it's such a popular series, to get you caught up, because I think you're thrown right back into things, but I cannot wait. I was going to request an e-arc, but I'm so used to the audiobooks, and I just love the audiobooks so much, so I decided to wait. So I can't really tell you much about this book in particular because it is the 7th book in a series, and I'm sure you all know what Murderbot is, but if you haven't read it, you really should. I just love it so much. Then we have a contemporary romance, and this is Do Your Worst by Rosie Danan, who is an author name I recognize. I think she wrote The Roommate, which I have not read, but I know a lot of people really loved that one. So this seems a little bit different. Our heroine is actually a curse breaker, and she's hired to break this curse at this Scottish castle, and she ends up meeting a guy there who is an archaeologist, and he just wants her to leave. And they hate each other, but they can't resist each other, so it's actually like an enemies to benefits to lovers romance, I think, which is different. So I'm just hoping that setup gives us a lot of banter. And I love the idea that she's like a curse breaker and he's an archaeologist, so they obviously have very different perspectives and what that will lead to. So I think this will be steamy. I know that The Roommate was super steamy, and this just looks like a good time. One word comes to mind when I look at the cover of Mothtown, and that is unsettling. There is something so eerie about this cover, even though it seems so simple. And when you read the synopsis, it doesn't really tell you much because our main character doesn't know much, and I think we slowly learn what is happening as he does, so that alone intrigues me. So we're following David, who grew up in a world where something terrible is happening, but his parents really kept him sheltered from that. They turned off the news, they kept him isolated, and he just never really knew what was going on. All he knew was that his grandfather was missing. He was told that his grandfather died, but he saw some things that were weird, like his grandpa's backpack and his coat or something weren't at the house anymore, so he had suspicions that that wasn't quite true. And I think as the book goes on, we learn with David what is really happening in the outside world. So I have no idea where that story is going to go, but I'm into that setup. We're also getting a new book from Christina Henry, who I've read one book from and I didn't love, but I think that's on me because I don't love Red Riding retellings that much. But I know so many people adore Christina Henry, and it's exciting to have something new from her. This is called Good Girls Don't Die, and I'm really into this premise. Apparently it follows three women who find themselves trapped inside stories that they know aren't their own, and it's supposed to be really twisty, and they're all in different realities. And the one thing that these three women have in common is that they are lover of stories and reading and things like that, and they have their favorite tropes, and they end up in these storylines that have their favorite tropes in them, and they're trying to get out of them. And I'm curious to see how they all parallel one another and come together, but they're all very different storylines. That could be really cool if it was handled well, and I know that a lot of people adore Christina Henry, so I have a good feeling about it. Definitely one I want to give a try. Moving on to November 21st, we are really getting through these quickly. It's definitely not as many books as I normally talk about, but some exciting ones. And this one looks really cute. It's called Till Death Do Us Part by Rose Black. And the tagline says, marriage isn't always sunshines and unicorns. Sometimes it's monsters and necromancy. So how many buzzwords are in that one sentence? Unicorns, monsters, necromancy, I'm into it. And I think that this is kind of a cozy fantasy where there are higher stakes than you might expect in your typical cozy, because I think the real world stakes, necromancy, that kind of thing is gonna play a big role in here. And I have been told like there's actual unicorns in this. And I don't read a lot of books that have real unicorns in them, so I'm into that. This follows a character named Logan who has retired. It says that he hung up his axe, so I wonder what his past career was. And he wants to settle down with his husband, his husband is really sweet. They describe him as sunshine, but one day his husband goes missing, and he learns that his husband has been blackmailed into finding some kind of artifact that can raise an undead army, and he needs to save his husband and stop this from happening. So that does sound like high stakes, but people are saying it's cozy. The cover is giving cozy. I love a sunshine character. I'm into the unicorns, so yeah, I'll be reading that one. This next one I'm really hoping is coming out. It's War Widow by Deborah Fillet. The cover was announced last year, and then I haven't heard anything else about it. There's no synopsis online anywhere, but on every website I go to, it does say you can pre-order it for November 21st. So I'm hopeful we're getting it, but I can't find anything online. I don't think the author's really on social media as much these days. So I don't know, I'm just crossing my fingers because I loved the first book. This is one of my most anticipated books of the year. This is the sequel to Blood Scion, which was a YA fantasy that came out last year. It was actually a fairy loot book, but it didn't get the hype that I thought it deserved. Maybe because it's too much, because it is one of the most brutal books I have ever read. Deborah Fillet was not afraid to go there, and it was handled so well, but it was harrowing. And what happens in the last 20 pages was a lot, and I need answers, I need more. So cross your fingers that we get this one, but I'll definitely be keeping an eye on it. I'm still hopeful that it will come. So we're already on the last day of November, November 28th, and we're just trucking along, but there are quite a few books coming out on this day, and we're gonna start with a Nutcracker retelling. And this is The Kingdom of Sweets by Erica Johansson, whose name you might recognize because she wrote the Queen of the Tearling series. That series seems to have a lot of staying power. I feel like it's still finding new readership. People still adore it, so I would like to get to it eventually, but I want to read this one first because I tend to read a lot of holiday romances, and it might be nice to put a darker, because this is supposed to be pretty dark, Nutcracker retelling in the mix. And this is about two sisters who were cursed at birth, and they're forever changed one memorable Christmas. So again, perfect December read. So the sisters in this case are Clara and Natasha, and Clara has a birthright bestowed upon her when they are born from their godfather, who happens to be a sorcerer, and she's always been the favorite, beautiful, all that, and Natasha has lived in her shadow until something happens where she can seek her revenge, and I think she gets caught up in it. I think the Sugar Plum Fairy in this is kind of evil, which I love, so that'll be a good one. That'll be really fun. I hope that that one lives up to my expectations, because I don't think I've ever read a Nutcracker retelling, and I love that this one is going dark with it. Then we have a sequel to a witchy rom-com that I read and recommend quite a bit because I just think it was so fun. And I have a feeling that the sequel has the potential to be even better. So this is A Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch. It's a sequel to A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon. Great titles. And in this one, we are following two characters who we did meet in book 1. You probably don't have to read book 1 to read book 2, but I think you should because you get little hints of them, and it's interesting to even imagine these two together and having a romance because they're so different, and the banter is going to be next level. I'm excited to see how this even plays out, and I just love these characters and the whole setup, and I think it's a good time. We're getting a new one from Helena Greer, who is another romance author that I have never read from, but I see her stuff around quite a lot. And this is For Never and Always. One surprise inheritance, 2 best friends, now better exes, and 3 months to prove he loves her forever and always. And the swoony second chance romance. I love a second chance romance. And another thing I love are romances set around weddings, especially if the characters that we were following are actually working the wedding. So in this case, our heroine owns the inn where the wedding is taking place, and our hero is actually a celebrity chef who's agreed to do this wedding because he wants to get his ex back. And she agrees to go on 5 dates with him to kind of just shut him up, I think, but he's determined to make her fall in love with him again. There's a lot of things that I like in there. I love weddings, I love foodie romances, so there's potential. I love second chance, so hopefully I like that one. I do want to try something by this author. Maybe this will be the one I finally pick up. This next one is very, very niche, but I'm excited for it, and I already know I'll be buying a copy for my best friend, and he's gonna buy me a copy. We've talked about it. So that'll be our Christmas gifts to one another. Makes it easy. And this is Welcome to the OC, The Oral History. We were huge OC fans back in the day. That show was on when we were in high school, so I'm telling you how old I am. And I think it was Thursday nights. I didn't miss an episode of the OC. I was in love with it. I remember being in New York when, was it the season? I think it was the 2nd season finale. And no, I was not going out. I was staying in that hotel room and watching the finale of the OC. That was my priority. I just love that show so much. So this actually is a series of interviews with the cast and crew. And I think like all the cast contributes to this as well. So of course I'm going to be reading that, and obviously, as I said, this is not for everybody, but if you were a fan of the OC and didn't know that this was coming out, there you go. And then we'll end on a high note because I already read this and I love it. It's one of my best books of 2023, and this is The Witchwood Knot by Olivia Atwater. I have really fallen in love with Olivia Atwater over the last year. Read Small Miracles for Smithbow, loved it. Finally read Half a Soul, amazing, and this is my favorite book from her. It is set in the same universe as Half a Soul, but while Half a Soul is Regency romance, this one is Victorian. So as you might expect, this one is a little bit darker, and I ate it up. It's gothic. It follows a witch named Winnie who agrees to be a governess to a young boy, even though she hates children, because she is close friends with this boy's grandmother, and she moves in to the Witchwood Manor, and very early on, the house bites her. Like as she's walking into the house for the first time, she gets bit by the house, and that is when I knew I was going to love this. And if you have read Half a Soul, you know that there are fays in this world. So this house is haunted, but not haunted by ghosts, haunted by fae. And I thought that was so well done. I love that so much. So at night, there are faces in the walls, and she's hearing whispering and things like that. She has a familiar who is a dead cat. It's like a skull that she brings to life, and I loved him so much. And we just get her with the young boy that she is a governess to, and them discovering what's really happening in this house. There's a lot more going on. There's a very, very, very slow burn romance, a very slow burn romance. Don't go into this one expecting to have the level of banter and romance that you get in Half a Soul. That is not the point of this book at all. This is more of a gothic haunted house story that is unique, and I ate it up, and I think it's fantastic, so atmospheric. Cannot wait to have a copy for my shelves and reread it. And I know that this is the start of a series, and that makes me so happy because now I'm just officially an Olivia Atwater stan, and I don't apologize for it. So that's a really exciting one. So there we have it. Those are all the books coming out in November that I'm excited to read. Let me know if I missed any of these are on your radar, if I introduced you to any new ones that you're excited about, all the things. Thank you again for your support. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.